Welcome again and good afternoon. Welcome to the group exhibit for hydrogen fuel cells and batteries at the Hanover Fair 2017. Anyone around the outside, please come in, sit down, enjoy complimentary beverage service. My name is Michael Sinclair and I'll be the moderator for this next discussion. I'd like to remind you that audience questions are welcome at any time, so please feel free to raise your hand and I'll bring the microphone to your table. It's with a lot of pleasure that I'm up here going to give this next interview. I've got a great guest and a great discussion. The discussion is entitled Clean Hydrogen for All Europeans. And it'll be with the Executive Director of the European Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Association. Please join me in welcoming Miss Marieke Reijalt to the stage. Sorry about that. I feel like as a Canadian, I get a few passes to make mistakes with names.
Yes.
So could you please start by introducing the European Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Association? Why was it founded?
Yeah. Well, we were founded in the year 2000. I always like to mention that because it's really, the Millennium Organization, hopefully. It was founded by 5 national organizations that pulled together the knowledge in universities and research centers at that point to start looking at engaging industry in becoming clusters that would really accompany the first rollouts. Well, we are now representing the bulk of the national associations in Europe. And yeah, you are seeing also in our membership a bit the shifting of the different members towards commercialization, becoming more active in business associations, of course. But I think European Hydrogen Association over these 17 years have been really the organization that explains the role of hydrogen and fuel cells in the society. Indeed, towards knowledge that is available to all Europeans and beyond.
So in what way specifically do you represent your members?
Well, I think mainly, of course, when we were becoming a bit more representative of more of Europe, of the EU, although we have also membership in the Ukraine, we got a nice demand and a question from Turkish colleagues that want to revive their clusters and organization for hydrogen as well to become a member. But we are, I would say we are indeed a broader representative organization of national associations, of course, a Brussels-based organization in order to make sure that in all these different areas that hydrogen and fuel cells development and deployment touches, be it energy, be it transport, be it climate, be it environment, that all have different directorates and departments in the European Commission and have all their different policies and their different funding programs, that we seek to support our national members with information on tapping into if it's policies that they can communicate to their own governments and pushing in directives that make sense for hydrogen, plus the funding programs, of course.
So what role do these different regions play in the rollout of the hydrogen infrastructure?
Well, I think the membership, as said, is evolving in every country with industry activity, I would say. Where is industry currently locating its first bigger projects, bigger rollout for buses, bigger rollout for cars? Of course, the first big metropolitan areas are the main locations still. But we feel if we are really talking about not only the clean energy for all Europeans that the European Commission presented last November, if we are really talking about clean energy towards clean hydrogen and emphasizing also the role of hydrogen and clean energy, then of course we have to look beyond the metropolitan areas and also start to address the possibilities of engagement of regions in bigger hydrogen production and distribution system. And yeah, that is, I think, where we as an association currently focus a lot of our activity.
Presumably, hydrogen infrastructure in outside of the city centers might be less economically attractive. So how do you encourage infrastructure to spread beyond the major economic centers?
Well, I think apart from on-site hydrogen production also in city centers, I think hydrogen production, of course, needs to happen outside urban areas. You can question, indeed, the distributed generation also in urban centers, but the hydrogen that we would need for bulk kind of usage and transportation, that has to be organized in networks connected to the bigger renewable plants. And I'm very happy to announce that this week the Commission approved a project where the EHA for 2 years has been working with national governments, in this case the Dutch government, and with industrial players, with the transmission system operators, the big companies that are responsible for our gas and electricity networks. We have developed a project that finally connects also in a European funding program energy infrastructure linked to renewable energy to the transport corridors in Europe. The Commission developed a possibility last year, and together with the national government in the Netherlands, we worked towards a proposal that was approved and announced this week on the Commission's website.
Okay, and what role will the EHA play in this project?
Well, I think, as said, first of all, what we do in these kind of instances where we pick up in the Commission an interest in an area of programs that could help fund certain deployment that is necessary in this phase. Yeah, we start, of course, introducing the topic to the different national associations that we hope then connect with national governments to see if there is an interest to form consortia or support consortia. In this case, we found the Dutch government interested. Then we facilitate the meetings with the right people in the Commission. That's not always an easy task. It looks like a simple thing of picking up the phone, but in order to get the right people and everybody together with all these busy agendas is a headache, of course. And making sure then that out of these meetings, the right next steps in engaging the right partners to form the proposal. Well, then proposal writing, we have experts in our national association that we can engage in the proposal writing. And yeah, now we have been asked to support the coordination of this project as well. And that is also levering the expertise of all national associations.
And is it that typical for you to be involved in the coordination of the execution of the project?
Not necessarily. I think our role is mainly the dissemination and indeed the development of the consortia, to look for partners now with this database of 17 years of deployment and development contacts. You, of course, try to make sure that you have a close line to the different deployments that could make sense in using in certain new projects. But yeah, I think mainly for the European Hydrogen Association, it becomes increasingly important to ensure that potential sectors and potential industries, potential clusters of renewables become engaged in the deployment of our products and systems as well.
Audience, just a reminder that it's open to questions, so if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. So how does your role at EHA or EHA in general, how does it relate to the activities of Hydrogen Europe?
Yeah, Hydrogen Europe, of course, that's one of the developments I mentioned in the beginning, that industry is pulling together behind, like in most sectors, of course, business associations that are specifically designed to represent the business interest. If not in Brussels, then also towards bigger global political leaders. So I think right now, indeed, for business, it's important that they focus on where and how to get markets started as soon as possible. I think the role of an association like us in promoting the typical, I think, contribution of hydrogen to the bigger picture of all this energy transition and energy and transport transitions, as I think we should call it, is indeed a bit different in that, and I'm glad that we could mention indeed as title clean hydrogen for all Europeans, that we make sure that this becomes a conclusive, inclusive future or near future activity as well, that we make sure not only in Europe that we reach out to as many players also outside the hydrogen community, important organizations like organizations that promote storage of energy in general, that promote renewables energy, of course, that are involved in urban climate action activities. And we moved the part of our activities to an area in Brussels that is a bit of an upcoming urban quarter of Brussels, where a lot of new kind of business and community and cooperatives are starting around clean transport, around clean deliveries, also to get a bit of a better understanding of how indeed all Europeans in urban areas or outside are perceiving this change, and how we can best explain to them what business is offering us to help clean air in urban areas, and to indeed form those communities of renewable energy that will need the storage and that will need the grid management solutions that we all see around us here.
So I guess my next question is, are you setting an example yourself? Are you or any of your colleagues driving a hydrogen vehicle? Did you drive a hydrogen vehicle to the fair from Brussels?
Thanks for asking this. Yes, well, I had a colleague coming from Brussels indeed to Hanover, and I think because of the many cars that are fueled in the area of the drive and ride. And I had actually a question to the audience. Who has driven the cars outside, the fuel cell cars yet? One.
It's like one gentleman, yeah?
One gentleman only. Well, I would, yeah.
There's a second.
Sorry. Two, really, yes. So, well, you have a chance still this afternoon and then tomorrow, so please try. Because it's something different. I have driven it. I don't drive it daily because Brussels is not an area to drive any car. Brussels center, so you would avoid cars actually. So I bike. I'm Dutch, so I bike. But the experience, I still have it after, well, I've been over 15 years now in the sector. I still have it myself. If you drive now with your experience, because who has a fuel cell car? Who is driving a battery car? Okay. So if you drive one of these cars outside, be it a fuel cell car, battery car, but these zero-emission cars are something different. It's so great to feel that you indeed reach 160 kilometers an hour on a German highway without noticing it. It's so smooth. The acceleration is so nice. I love to drive, by the way, not that I'm only biking. So I really encourage you to experience, because once you feel that the technology is really ready to transport you in this clean way, we don't want anything else. So the sooner that indeed all Europeans are aware that this is available, that the one of us that can afford the first, more expensive, of course, cars, the better.
And maybe you can direct our audience to where to find those cars. I think it's just out behind us, behind the stage at the
you
door.
take the exit over here, and then to your left, you can make the reservations on the hour you. And it's BMW, it's Toyota, it's Honda, it's Hyundai. You have a choice there. So.
But I don't think you'll be able to test drive them up to 160 kilometers an hour.
Well, maybe you don't manage in the parking lot.
Okay, so audience, just another reminder. Any questions at this time? No? So what are the...
There was a
Oh,
question.
there's one. Excellent.
Thank you. Did you find any difficulties now that Trump is president and he thinks that all the climate changes are a hoax? Does this influence what you're doing in Europe?
I think Trump hasn't driven a fuel cell car yet, so I would encourage him to drive a fuel cell car, and just as I said, then we talk after. Yes, I do believe that opinion makers, if we can call him an opinion maker.
He's an opinion haver, for sure.
Well, maybe. That, of course, these people would still influence. We haven't seen under Obama, although we have seen big changes in the number of hydrogen refueling stations, not only in California, but outside as well. We haven't quite seen yet on a political level a real push towards this. There are battery initiatives and so forth. So I would hope, indeed, and not only Trump, I want Ivanka to drive a fuel cell car and say indeed how lovely that would be. No, it needs indeed that kind of what the Hydrogen Council that was here yesterday, the big coalition of 13 big multinationals that made the announcement of the 10.7 billion 5-year investment commitment. Where they indicated that the real objective of this coalition too is to talk business with the big political leaders. I think the demonstration of what we can deliver here at this fair, and this is the 23rd edition already, and it's still for me the only one where I really feel there is a gathering of the big, I would say, representation of what Europe, but increasingly also the colleagues of other continents are able to deliver on this. Yeah.
We had a guest on stage just a little earlier from Pajarito Powder, which is just over there, and he's American. I'm Canadian, so I don't have great insights, but he gave a great answer to that, and his answer had to do with the different policies that exist at the state level. So the federal government can set priorities across the country, obviously in the United States, but there's a lot of more progressive policies at the state level in the United States. California having a strong leadership position there, but under their leadership, I think there are other states that are adopting similarly progressive adoption, policies for green vehicles.
Yeah, definitely. And then, of course, we have seen a progression in EU policy for that matter as well. And recently, the commitments of the national governments towards an alternative fuels infrastructure became more clear. And we have now 12 of the, I think, 17 or 18 submitted national plans for alternative fuel promotion. Include hydrogen. And that is actually something I haven't heard mentioning it here too frequently yet, but these 12 member states that indeed have now to commit in 2025 to a national network of hydrogen stations where you would be able to circulate with a fuel cell vehicle the country. That is an enormous push towards indeed covering Europe with a sufficient network, what car industry is asking for, of hydrogen stations. 12 countries, you can see in our booth just behind a map where we indicate all these countries. They are all bordering. It's really a territory of Europe. These 12 are covering a territory of Europe where you can go on holiday on in your fuel cell car.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time. So the booth number is C74, so it's just behind us down the aisle, this direction. I welcome you to go speak further with Marieke at her booth. So please join me in thanking Miss Marieke Reijalt for joining us on the stage today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Up next, we have a talk from Dr. Joachim Kromer. He's the head of sales for Borit. The title of the talk will be Metal Bipolar Plates and Interconnects on the Industrial Level. So please stay in your seats and enjoy the next discussion.